Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
A step toward greater transparency at Michigan State University. Today, the board agreed to hand over thousands of documents related to the Larry Nassar investigation. Thank you for joining us here at 5. I'm Pamela Osborne, in for Kimberly Gill.
And I'm Damon Fernandez, in for Devin Skillian. The Michigan Attorney General's office has been asking for these documents since 2018. At one point, a judge deemed these documents as attorney-client privileged information, and the university didn't have to release them. But the Attorney General put in a new request in April. Megan Woods joins us live with more on today's vote and what happens next.
Damon, Pamela, when we're talking about long awaited, yes, that's what the Attorney General is saying, and all 8 trustees voted to send that information to the Attorney General's office. We talked to Dana Nessel one-on-one, and she says not only is this long awaited, but that this is transparency owed to the MSU community and survivors.
This was an opportunity for us to do the right thing and move on to the next chapter of our healing at MSU.
Dr. Rima Vassar says this has been a conversation for some time, but today it finally came to a vote.
I now call on the secretary for a roll call vote to the board.
Trustee Byram.
Yes.
And that internal information that the university once refused to give up will now be going to the Michigan Attorney General's office.
It was over 6,000 emails that they refused to provide.
Attorney General Nessel says it will take about 4 weeks for the university to get them that information, then additional time for her office to comb through it. She says from a legal perspective, people should manage their expectations.
So many crimes under Michigan law have a 6-year statute of limitations. So if it's been 5 years or more since we've been requesting this, it might well it might well be that there are individuals that were employed by the university that otherwise could have been criminally charged and now, will be prohibited.
She hopes that this will get survivors and families the answers that they've been waiting for.
How is Larry Nassar able to continue to commit his crimes over the course of not just years, but decades? And what did the university know, and when did they know it? I mean, these are the kinds of things that people have been asking for many, many years.
Former Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette also released a statement regarding this vote. You can find that on clickondetroit.com. But there's still the question why. Why now did the board decide this is what they wanted to do? Well, we talk a little bit more about that and get a closer look coming up tonight at Local 4 at 6. Reporting live, I'm Megan Woods, Local 4.
All right, Megan, thank you.
MSU's Board of Trustees has also settled lawsuits with the families of 3 students killed during the campus shooting this year. Relatives of Alex Verner will receive $5 million. You may remember the 20-year-old was from Clawson. That community rallied around her family after her murder in February. Right now, the families of Brian Frazier and Ariel Anderson have not spoken about their settlements. 5 students were critically injured also that night. The gunman was killed by police.
A police gun buyback held in Southfield last weekend sparked some controversy over how the guns people surrender are being disposed of. Well, tonight there's more clarity about making certain the weapons you're voluntarily turning in never get back on the streets, including some of the gun parts. Local 4's Rod Maloney is joining us from Southfield tonight. He's uncovering more on this issue. Hi, Rod.
Yeah, Damon, good evening. We were here on Saturday when they brought in 224 guns. The pastor here saying that he wanted to get them off of the street. A lot of the people were happy to bring their guns because they didn't want them anymore. But here's the thing. Parts of the guns were to be destroyed, and he knew that other parts might be recycled and end up back on the street. He didn't want to see that happen, and tonight he was able to change that. They lined up around the church and down the street Saturday, owners turning in weapons, netting holiday gift cards for their trouble, many admitting they'd held inherited guns and didn't know where to go to safely turn them in. Licensed handgun owner Anita Wilson saying she's keeping one, but
one belonged to my mother and one I had, and I just decided, no, let's get rid of them. I'm not using them.
Jermaine Brown's 3-year-old grandson FaceTimed with her while in line to turn in her late mother's shotguns.
I kept them all this time for nostalgia, but
I got a grandson now, so nope, they got to get out.
Most everyone here assumed the sawed-off shotguns and rusty ones held together with duct tape would end up destroyed. Pastor Chris Yaw knew otherwise, though. He'd spoken to a New York Times reporter about the company accepting the guns would likely recycle and sell parts like springs, triggers, and barrels.
I believe this method of ridding our state of guns is unsatisfactory. For buyback weapons at a minimum, guns taken out of circulation need to remain out of circulation.
Gunbusters is the contractor Michigan State Police used to handle buyback guns. It now has agreed to destroy all of the buyback weapons turned in at no cost. Southfield Police Chief Elvin Barron, who oversaw Saturday's gun buyback, said in today's press conference,
I do want to, as Father Yaw mentioned, thank Gunbusters for recognizing, at least in this instance, that more needs to be done, and State Police for helping that process seamless for us.
Now, gun buybacks are actually quite expensive. They had to raise $20,000 in donations, along with the $5,000 in donations that the county gave them to hold just this one gun buyback, and Gunbusters charges $70 a weapon to destroy them. But MSP is saying, look, they can make this thing work, and they're working with Gunbusters, but Barron is saying that the legislature needs to get involved and change the laws to make sure that all of the gun buyback guns end up off the street. Reporting live, Rod Maloney, back to you.
All right, Rod, thank you.
A driver is recovering in the hospital and is also under arrest after being shot by Sterling Heights police. It happened after a traffic stop and a short chase late last night. Police say after stopping in the area of Carbon Drive and 15 Mile Road, the driver sped off but got blocked in by a dead end in a nearby subdivision. At that point, the driver reportedly tried to run over police while trying to escape. One officer opened fire, hitting that driver several times. He's listed in stable condition. We know one officer was treated but released for minor injuries.
Right now, the U.S. is urging Israel to cut back on its large-scale ground campaign in Gaza and instead focus on more targeted attacks. But so far, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is showing no signs he'll back down, vowing to continue the fight until Hamas is destroyed. All this amid an ongoing battle over funding for Israel and Ukraine on Capitol Hill. NBC's Alice Barr has the latest.
Amid an unrelenting assault on the Gaza Strip, the Biden administration is growing more direct in trying to sway Israel's approach to rooting out Hamas. Two U.S. officials telling NBC News the administration has told the Israeli government it wants it to end its large-scale ground campaign in Gaza and move to a new phase centered on targeted airstrikes and raids. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan meeting today with the Palestinian Authority president after talks with Israeli officials.
There will be a transition to another phase of this war, one that is focused in more precise ways on targeting the leadership and on intelligence-driven operations.
President Biden weighed in Thursday after rebuking Israel's, quote, indiscriminate bombing in Gaza.
I want them to be focused on how to save civilian lives, not stop going after Hamas, but be more careful.
Israel has been dropping leaflets warning of strike zones and insists it's doing all it can to protect civilians. The parents of a 7-year-old Palestinian girl told NBC News she was killed by a bomb fragment while sleeping in a tent in Rafah near the Egyptian border after Israeli warnings to flee the city of Khan Yunis. Of the 29,000 bombs Israel has dropped on Gaza since the October 7th Hamas terror attack, nearly half have been unguided and less precise dumb bombs. That's according to a U.S. intelligence assessment shared with Congress, two sources told NBC News. On Capitol Hill, Senate negotiators trying to strike a deal for more aid to Israel, as well as Ukraine and the U.S. southern border by the end of the year.
It's an aggressive schedule, but this is an emergency.
They're hoping for a Senate vote next week.
Late word that the Israeli military is acknowledging its forces killed 3 Israeli hostages in Gaza that IDF soldiers mistakenly thought were a threat. Israeli officials saying the hostages had likely escaped or were abandoned by Hamas, noting Israel is crying with their families. In Washington, Alice Barr, Local 4.
Today, the Detroit Fire Department held a graduation ceremony for its largest class of cadets this year. It's also the fire department's largest dual-enrolled class. 90 graduates at today's ceremony were honored for completing training to be certified in both fire and EMS.
We have 90 plus individuals here that are superheroes that when they walked in made me feel safe. And so on behalf of Mayor Mike Duggan, the citizens of the city of Detroit, and everybody in the administration, we say thank you to the families for supporting your loved ones, your firefighters, these superheroes.
The graduates will complete 1 year as probationary firefighters, but they are equipped with all of the necessary skills to serve Detroit residents. Congratulations to them.
Yeah. Well, here's a live look from our Windsor Skycam this afternoon.
Nice.
Look at that sunset right there.
Beautiful. What a treat.
Yeah.
And the weather was also a treat today because it ended up being quite mild.
It sure was. And hey, Kim Adams is over there talking to us about what we can expect tonight, too.
Well, it's going to stay mild tonight. If you're headed downtown, maybe to do some ice skating or shop outside or go to a restaurant, it's really going to be pleasant. 54 right now in Detroit. It's in the upper 40s. At Metro Airport, a lot of cities made it into the mid, even upper 50s this afternoon. Didn't break our record. That was 61, but close enough. Right now it's 9 degrees warmer than it was yesterday, just 24 hours ago at City Airport, also in Mount Clemens. 7 degrees warmer in Pontiac and also in Howell. Tomorrow, we don't get into the 50s because we'll have quite a bit of cloud coverage throughout the day, but it will be dry with our high reaching the upper 40s. Then a little bit of a change for next week. The beginning of the week, we drop down to 40, and then by Tuesday, we're in the 30s, and we are talking about a rain-snow mix to start out the work week. We'll talk about that in a few minutes.